interviewer.
Right?
I'm really here to throw you on some softballs and get a couple of stars extra on my next album. We're hoping we have a very transactional relationship. We have, Jann and I have known each other a long time. We're both old men attempting to gracefully face our extinction. Glasses. We are both in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Only one of us has not been to Burning Man. 3 times. But I'm glad to be here tonight with my friend, and so let's try and start at the beginning. Jann was born on Rainbow Road. Where else? I don't know. I know no more perfect metaphor for the arc of Jann's life than being born on Rainbow Road.
That was the first thing I did in the book, is I realized you're always trying to get that opening sentence, and that was it, the perfect thing. Rainbow, because I knew what it would be to the end of the rainbow.
I want to hear a little bit, coming from Freehold, Rainbow Road was like Middle Earth or something. So I'm interested in hearing you describe a little bit of your child.
Well, what I realized at the beginning is my childhood was like a typical post-war baby boom childhood. I was born in the first month of 1946, which was right after the war. My parents were both in the Army and the Navy, and they met there. And they moved out from New York to the West Coast to kind of follow the post-war dream. And so I was at that leading edge of the baby boom, and I realized later, there must have been some reason for that it exemplified somehow everything. I went through everything that everyone went through in the 50s, of the growing up in new suburbs, going to the new schools, jumping under your desk for your atomic bomb. And soon enough, discovering rock and roll. And Elvis Presley at the beginning. So it was just kind of a classic childhood of that era. And then also I discovered that my pediatrician in New York had been Dr. Spock. Wow. Not that Dr. Spock. Not the other one. And he was like considered responsible for the raising of the rules for the post-war baby boom, which were called spare the rod and spoil the child. And so I was also part of that indulged generation. But it was classic, putting dimes on railroad tracks. We would go into the town when I was like 10 years old in a nearby town and press our heads up against the Sears window at the candy counter and sort of look lonely and poor and hungry. And then she'd hand you that chocolate, which was great. And until I was sent away to boarding school and introduced to a whole nother world.
Yeah, I'm interested in that. He went to Chadwick School?
Chadwick School.
Tell me a little bit what that was like.
It was like a change of life. All of a sudden I was with a bunch of kids who were more at my early intellectual level, rather than being at a public school where just, anything goes, and where public school you learn just to shut up. If you know the answer, don't say it, which was a struggle for me. But there, I felt much more kind of my peer group, and you're away from home, my parents were getting divorced, and all of a sudden you're on your own, totally on your own. And in an environment that's meant to coddle kids, or with people, teachers who know how to handle obstreperous adolescents. I mean, that's their specialty. So you're just in a place where you made new friends, and after 5 years of being in the same boarding school with the same kids, it's your family. So you're with just another family.
I always think of boarding school like Lord of the Flies. Was it cruel or?
It was no.
Had an enormous amount to do with the impact that he had at that particular moment. In other words, there was a call out for people at that particular time who would seize that particular moment in their different fields. And yeah, timing is important, but you got to step up and step into the fire and have the balls to kind of go in music or make the magazine, you know. I mean, there was, that's 1967, there seemed to be this enormous wide open lane for somebody that spoke to the post-war.
Absolutely. And I was like, as one of those people caught by Dylan, or taken in by what he had to say, galvanized by Dylan, or whatever the good word is, crystallized. And very much his path. I mean, that's what we call it, like a Rolling Stone. It was named after Bob's song. And to me, Bob was the most important voice of those times, and still, you know, as important as today, since, like you do in my class, I've written about aging, going up and so forth. But that was it. That told people to step up, and we wanted to follow that path that Bob was setting, that idea, and that aesthetic and that ethic, you know. And it wasn't obviously political. It wasn't go elect this person as president. Bob was asked, was that president? Are you with any? Do you belong to the left part, left wing, or the right wing party? He goes, no, I belong to the up and down party. And it was that kind of disdain for the obvious dullness of the politics, getting us nowhere that wasn't in of itself political, that we will reject that and we'll just do another kind of it. And it was cultural politics. And culture came to take over the political battle.
Right. You know, it's, now, you know, one of the things Rolling Stone did was it was an enormous canvas for all the great writers that you, Tom Wolfe, Hunter Thompson, and my old friend Paul Nelson, and Will Marcus, of course, Mr. John Landau. You know, Dave, P.J. O'Rourke, and the political writer, Matt, I'm sorry, yeah. How did you sort of come in contact with all these different people, and then how did you edit them? That seems like that's a tough job.
Well, the way, I mean, you read, I think, beyond that, I don't think there's anything. I mean, they might turn down this, but no, I don't think I can't remember any offhand. I mean, it was like such an iconic place to be. And we would send Annie, or some of the best photographers, Bird or Avalon, Mark Sutter, so it was a really desirable thing.
Yeah, it was, I was not on the cover of Rolling Stone. I'm picking a bone here. But I was just talking about it. They were a little skittish about putting me on the cover. When it came out, it was on the cover of Time Newsweek.
He was an establishment pig at that time.
That's just cool.
I mean, nobody ever got on the cover of those two magazines at once. It's been published month, a huge controversy in New York media between Time and Newsweek, and it went on for days. How did he, you know? And of course, my old pal and editor John Landau didn't say, well.
Yeah, but the worst part about this was the IRS notice. I hadn't paid a penny in taxes when I was on the Time and Newsweek, and IRS. It took me about 10 years. If you could pick, I like this one. If you could pick only one issue of Rolling Stone to give to the aliens, what issue would that be? What's the one you think back and man, that was, we hit it out of the ball?
Well, what do you want the aliens to do? It's about me, and do I want to show them my message? I wouldn't be concerned about the aliens, so I would give them it. But seriously, I wish you would either you or Bob on it was about me. I haven't been on the cover.
I was you, I would have put myself on the I mean, after all that time.
Need somebody off. Like I make my Sunday.
Okay, here's an interesting.
Oh, Theo, I mean, Jude, India Hot.
Oh, yeah.
Stand up,
Today, good work.
What? Okay.
Okay. Does rock and roll still, and this is an interesting question because Rolling Stone defined the rocker in the sense that you were post-rock and roll. And if you consider rock and roll to be Jerry Lee and Chuck and all the originators. And bit pre-hip hop. Does rock and roll still have an important message for the next generation? I'm interested in the answer to this for myself.
Does rock and roll, what era of the
Does it?
post Chuck Berry era have a message in these times with all the hip hop around?
No, just with
In general.
just is there a message? Is rock music still vital enough to carry a cultural message?
Yes, it is. I mean, not with the same intensity, because hip hop has carried great messages and for a long time has really vital, important stuff as well as all the silly stuff about swag and so forth. Same with others, but rock and roll was married to that particularly historical moment in the 60s, where, as I was saying, that was married to the post-war baby boom generation, which was the biggest, wealthiest, and best educated generation of American history. At a moment, it came into its early adulthood in the beginning of the 60s, when all this music exploded by these great originals, Bob and Mick and so forth like that, all working the same thing together at the same time. Much like, say, in Paris, you had Matisse and Picasso, Leger, all mixed.
And really needed to be reminded that there was another life waiting when he wasn't so sure that there was. And to be reminded that, you weren't alone. And the magazine provided an enormous amount of fuel and companionship for all of us who were out there and who needed it at the time. So I'm just going to finish off by saying, you did a good job.